This is not clickbait, you guys. Some of the most expensive and rare comic books in the world have come through the shop and are going to be available for sale through Bry's Comics. You're not going to want to miss this story. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
In this video, we're talking about the find of a lifetime. 4 comic books that potentially could be valued at over $1 million, found perfectly preserved for all of these years. The stuff of dreams, the stuff that collectors and non-collectors alike dream of finding. And we're going to talk today about how they were preserved, how they were found, the deal that was struck for having them come through the shop, the potential grades, take a closer look at the books, and all of that in this video. But before we hop into that, if you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. And if you head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com, you're also entered to win a free slab. Use code COLLECT10 at brycecomics.com for 10% off. That code is always active. I have a ton of new inventory that was just listed on the site and a ton more stuff on the way. So let's talk about how this all went down. So these books walked into the comic book shop in Chico, California. That's just down the road from me, about 15 minutes away. I live in Paradise, California. It's called Collectors Inc. and Jason is the owner over at Collectors Inc. They've been there for well over 30 years. It's, for all intents and purposes, the local comic shop around here. I don't do a whole lot of new comic book day stuff, and so this is the place that you would go for new comic book day and all kinds of other stuff. Hopefully we'll get to talk to Jason in this video here a little bit later, but they walked into Jason and Jason called me and said, hey man, would you like to collaborate on this? Would you like to tag team this deal? Because this is the type of thing that needs maximum exposure, and I think it would be beneficial. Both of our shops have different strengths, and so it made sense for us to work together on this one. And I said, absolutely, of course, thank you so much for thinking of me. We went down and we met with the individuals that found these books and struck a deal. But first, before we get into the deal, let me tell you about the story about how these were found. We're talking about Fantastic Four #1, the first appearance of the Fantastic Four, Tales to Astonish 27, the first appearance of AntMan, Tales of Suspense 39, the first appearance of Iron Man, and Fantastic Four #5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom. Big boy books. These are huge keys in the comic community. Any collector knows that these are some of the biggest keys in comic books. The thing that's special about these books is the condition. So these books were bought somewhere probably close around to when they came out, and they were put in a box in an individual's house. This individual was a collector of sorts, not of comic books in particular, but a collector of everything, as you could kind of tell from the thumbnail video. So this box of comics was put somewhere in the room, and then over time, stacks and stacks and stacks of magazines and printed material covered the box of comics and completely isolated them and preserved them for however many years, 50, 60 years. So we're talking about Time magazine, we're talking about TV guides, we're talking about other printed material, car magazines, Mad magazines, stuff with little to no value that just completely isolated and preserved these books for all these years. The individual unfortunately passed away. Individuals that inherited it were in there cleaning up everything in the house and getting rid of all the printed material. The vast majority of it just recycle or throw away. And then they came across this box and they opened the box and they saw about 50 or 60 comics and they go, oh wow, these are different from everything else in the room. Now, the people that found it aren't comic book collectors, but they were wise enough to know that these look different. These look special. And so about 50 or 60 of the books, a lot of it good stuff, but most of it probably $20, $30, $100 books. Every once in a while, a really big book worth a couple $1,000s. And then there was these 4 books, which are just holy grails, incredibly valuable books. At the time of filming this, there are only 40 boxes left for the incredible Bry box of mystery, over $40,000 in prizes, including a Hulk 181 9.0, a $10,000 book, Giant Size X-Men 9.2, an $8,000 book, and a whole bunch more. If you missed out on this mystery box, just make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter at brycecomics.com. It'll enter you to win that free slab, and you'll also get first access to new mystery boxes with mega grail prizes. So let's go over more details about the actual books, their potential prices, and then we'll talk about the actual deal that was struck. So we'll start with the lowest value book and work up to the most valuable book. So the lowest value book out of the whole bunch is Fantastic Four #5, a huge grail. And it looks to be in about the 4.0 to 5.0 range. And the reason is because this book was in the stack of comics. It was kind of leaning out to the side. And so the edge of the comic book over all those years was collecting, dust and various, exposed to the elements. It was, exposed to Marvel chipping, because Marvel books from this era are really prone to having the edges kind of chip and fall off. And since the edge was sticking out, there's some Marvel chipping on the side. So I think it's about a 4.0 or a 5.0, which is, well north of a $10,000 book. Fantastic Four #5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom. Next in price is the Tales to Astonish #27, the first appearance of AntMan. Now, this book is scarce to begin with. Of all the grails for Marvel Comics and MCU characters, major MCU characters that have headlined their own movies, Tales to Astonish 27, the first appearance of AntMan, is probably the most rare of the MCU grails. It's just incredibly hard to find in general, and then it's even harder to find in high grade because nobody thought to keep this book. That's the whole point of them being rare, is nobody thought to preserve these that would be so valuable someday. And something about the paper material of this book and the brown cover, and mostly brown cover, is just incredibly hard to get in high grade. Well, this book was perfectly preserved inside of this stack of comic books. And I think that, I'll put some pictures up on the screen, but I think this book is going to tap out somewhere around an 8.0 or an 8.5. There's a little tear up on the top of the cover that it looks fresh. It's possible that it happened when they were found, after they were preserved all these years. They're not bagged and boarded for all of this time. So when you would imagine, coming across a box like this, you're cleaning up a house, perfectly understandable to think this is just more junk and pick it up. And I think maybe a little tear happened at that point because it does look kind of fresh. So I think that this book taps out at about an 8.0 or an 8.5, which is, well north of $20,000 for this book. Next up, we have Tales of Suspense #39. Now, this is an incredibly special book. With Tales of Suspense 39, the first appearance of Iron Man, there's three attributes to this book that can make it an actually really exceptional example of the book. And those three things are, number one, the bottom panel of the front cover, there's a little panel where Iron Man's gloves are getting snatched off of the page. And underneath that table, if you can see the blue underneath the table, that means that it's an exceptionally good cut. Oftentimes, this book was notoriously miscut on both edges, and so if you can see the blue under the table, it means it's a really good cut. A lot of copies, and I'll throw some examples up on the screen, don't actually have the blue under the table. The second thing that makes it an exceptional copy is the quotation marks around the word Iron Man on the cover. If it has both quotation marks, it's a really good example, and it's pretty darn rare to find one that has both quotation marks. So the third thing is page quality. If it's white pages, now you have an incredibly rare example of Tales of Suspense 39. If it has all three of those things, it's incredibly rare. Well, this book has 2.5 potentially, maybe 1.5, depending on the page quality, how it comes back. I'll put a picture on the screen of the page quality of this book. If it doesn't get white pages, it will be incredibly harsh. But, this book is notorious for getting cream pages or cream to off-white. This has a shot at white pages. To boot, it's like a 9.0 or 8.5, 9.0. It's a really, really nice copy of this book. Could be north of $40,000 for this book. Now for the big boy, Fantastic Four #1, in incredible condition. This book was also perfectly preserved in the middle of the stack of books, and it looks to be like a solid 8.0, 8.5, 9.0. And the reason that I'm on the fence about that is because there's some fingerprints on the back of the book, and they do look fresh, and it's possible that, while they were handled, coming out of how they were stored for all these years, they may have picked up some fingerprints. So that could be good or bad as far as fingerprints go, because if they're fresh and depending on what type of foreign substance was on the fingers, it could potentially be removed. But anybody who has experience with pressing and cleaning books will tell you that fingerprints are a hard hard maybe, because if it's not water soluble, it could be incredibly difficult to get those fingerprints off, or impossible. Sometimes they embed themselves into the fibers of the book. So we kind of have to wait and see. But this book has a shot, granted a very small shot, at a 9.2. The last sale for a 9.2 of a Fantastic Four #1 was this year, and it was $1.5 million. So it's just incredibly rare that these books ever even come up for sale and for auction. I would say it has about a 5% chance at getting a 9.2, depending on those fingerprints on the back. It's a very slim chance, but you know what that means.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
Anytime somebody has a shot or there's a chance at $1 million, you better believe that everyone is crossing their fingers and hoping and praying that that comes through. But if it doesn't get the 9.2, I think it has a solid shot at a 9.0 or an 8.5. The last sale of a 9.0 was $288,000, and the sale before that was over $400,000 for a 9.0. And then for an 8.5, the most recent sale was $228,000. Make sure to follow me over on Whatnot. Link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. I'm going to have some massive slab shows coming soon, starting at $1, and I guarantee there will be some good deals to be had, and we're having a ton of fun over on Whatnot. So no matter what, I mean, this book is going to be incredibly expensive. It's a newsworthy find for these 4 books. It's just the find of a lifetime. And that is the part of this story that is for everyone. Is if you're looking at a room, if you're going to clean out a room and you see it stacked floor to ceiling with junk and magazines, don't rule it out. Like it's I think it's inspiring and encouraging to everyone that these things are out there. I mean, it just happened. It just happened in my hometown, which is a small, meager hometown. Just the odds and the thought that these holy grails were in that part of my town for all of these years is inspiring, and should be inspiring to you that it does happen. It just happened here, and it could happen to you too. So, just keep your eyes peeled, folks. Don't rule it out. Check those boxes. You never know what you're gonna find. So now I want to talk about the deal a little bit. So what we decided to do is advance the sellers a sum of money that will hold them over and seal the deal for us, so we can write a contract, and they have some money in the meantime while these books are pressed, cleaned, and graded. Believe it or not, I just went through this in my shop with some other holy grails that came through about 3 weeks ago. Amazing Fantasy 15, All-Star Comics #8, and Hulk 1 through 6 came through the shop. And so I literally just did this, and in that example, I press and clean the comics myself. And what I learned from that experience was that I don't really enjoy pressing mega grails. It's incredibly stressful. It's not really enjoyable. And I decided that if that were to happen again with mega keys, I have a ton of experience pressing, but if it were to happen again with mega keys, I would contract out for that part. So we sent them off to one of the highest rated and most respected pressers in the business. I will be sure to promote them organically once we see the results. I don't want to, do any further promotion or anything until we see how they actually come back. I want to make sure I'm satisfied, but they've been sent there for pressing and cleaning, and then they're going straight to CGC in the walkthrough tier. So if you submit in the walkthrough tier, their current turnaround time is about 2 days for walkthrough. Make sure you follow me over on Instagram and turn notifications on for when I post trades, and make sure to sign up for that newsletter at brycecomics.com, where I'll also send out a notification that it's back and available for sale. Please, no inquiries about pricing or actually, working any kind of deals. We don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but it would be wise, if you're interested in a trade for these, to have that list of available books for trade ready to go for when I do post it. You can just send it along. I'm incredibly excited to introduce you guys to Jason from Collectors Inc. Comics in Chico, California. Jason, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Bri. Happy to be here.
So I know you and your family have been in the business for a long time. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your family history and your shop?
Well, my uncle started selling comics in town in 1971. We came out in 1989 and bought his books and added them to what we had from our store in Michigan that we opened in 79. So that makes it 51 years my family's been selling comics in Chico.
Over 50 years selling comics in Chico. This guy survived the 90s for comic books.
That was rough, I'll tell you.
In all of that time, have you ever seen something come through the shop quite like these books?
This is certainly a solitary experience. We've seen a lot of cool stuff come in, but nothing where it's this many keys in this condition and where it's been hiding all these years. It's probably been there since 1961. So
I'm incredibly grateful for you including me in this project. And leave a note in the comments, you guys. Is there any topics you'd like Jason and I to do more content on to tap into this guy's wealth of knowledge? His family's been in the business for over 50 years. Leave a note in the comments of some topics that you'd like to hear about running a comic shop for all those years.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Link down in the description as well to everything going on with Jason's shop. Jason, what do you have going on soon over at the shop?
Halloween Comic Fest is right around the corner. That's October 29th and 30th. We're doing a special wrestling show with the local pro wrestlers on Saturday, the 29th. And then we've got Free Comic Book Day is the first Saturday in May, as always.
So there you have it, folks. If you're anywhere near Northern California, come check out Jason's shop, Collectors Inc. in Chico, California. Thank you once again to everyone involved with this. Thank you to everyone in advance for your interest in these books. Thank you to the seller for trusting us with these prized collectibles, and congratulations on the score and find of a lifetime. Thank you once again to Jason at Collectors Inc. Comics in Chico, California. And thank you to all of you for sticking with me to the end of the video. Smash that bell, that notification bell, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the unboxing when these books actually come back from CGC. And we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.
Bry's Comics.